The Business Breakfast on Jazz FM.
6:20. Let's join Gerald Ashley, risk expert at St Morgan and Company. Gerald, very good morning to you. Let's explore this Euro story, if we may. I mean, you've been looking at this for, at least the past 24 hours, I know, and it's very interesting. It's Donald Trump saying, or rather the United States is saying through its various administrators, that the Euro is grossly undervalued. The implication of that, I think we're getting now that they want to put forward, is that Europe is trading on a currency with unfair advantage.
Morning, Michael. I think you summarised that extremely well. One of the interesting things I think about the Trump administration is they're sort of taking a look at some areas of trade and the economy and business in general that maybe haven't been in focus before. And as we know over the last week, they've got a habit of thinking aloud. And so we can never be certain whether that's their final view on things, or as I say, they're just sort of thinking these sort of thoughts out in public. At one level, none of this is a surprise. A number of commentators and economists over the years have thought that the big gainer from the euro has been Germany, because Germany is, as we know, is this huge export machine, and that the euro has been somewhat depressed by the other smaller economies within the currency, and that's been to Germany's advantage. But we've never had a government spokesman or somebody who's an advisor, in this case to Trump, come out and say that explicitly. And I think that does put the euro in a slightly different light. Whether it'll be anything more than a conversation is hard to see, because this is the central dilemma of the euro, is that this one size doesn't really fit all. And so what may be good for Germany is not necessarily good for the weaker economies, and vice versa. So
indeed. And
that's a tricky problem.
And speaking of weaker economies, perhaps a renewed crisis in Greece. It's been in the background for a while, hasn't it? Where's it going now?
Well, this used to be our favourite topic about a year or so, or 18 months ago, and the famous phrase was, the problem, the can has been kicked down the road. We've walked down the road, and we've arrived back at the can again, and really it's the same old story. You can just set your clock back a year or so, and the Greeks are saying that they're finding it difficulty to make interest rate payments, let alone repay any of the debt. And we've got another sort of standoff coming with them and possibly the IMF and, of course, the ECB and the European authorities. Quite how many more times we can sort of go through this, Lord only knows. But one thing to note this time is the politics in Greece are even more fractured than they were last time round. And I think one of the big problems to get any of this resolved is to get the Greek politicians on board, and then to stick to what they're supposed to be doing. So I think Brexit, dare I say it, might be another story during the summer.
OK, we'll no doubt do that with you, Gerald. Let's have a little pause for Ella Fitzgerald and Sunshine of Your Love. Ella Fitzgerald. Let's go back to Gerald Ashley, risk expert at St Morgan and Company. Now, what about if you understand the bond market, which I know you do, I've been reading a few things over the past couple of days saying that it is indicating that sort of growth that we all thought is going to happen is not necessarily the case. It's all about bond yields and all the rest of it, which gets very complicated for the radio and all that kind of stuff. But basically, we're looking at a bit of long-term stagnation. Do you believe that?
That's a tricky question to answer. I would answer it this way by saying all the forecasts last year underestimated everything. Everybody said the economy would stall and not the world was coming to an end, but there were going to be real problems post the Brexit vote. That turned out to be wrong. And the current sort of story in the marketplace is that we're now getting a surge in inflation because of the fall in the currency and all the rest of it, and that might actually cause a slowdown in the economy. There is some evidence that the great British consumer is maybe spending a little bit less than before Christmas. There was a feeling that there was going to be a sort of rush to buy everything at Christmas, and then things would come off the boil. That's certainly true. My own view is that we're not seeing a big slowdown in the UK economy. I think it might be rather a dull year, 2017, in those terms. And you might say, well, it'd be quite nice to have a dull year. From the Bank of England's point of view, they've got to decide if things are slowing down and by how much. Or indeed, is inflation going to go up and they'll need to raise rates? So it's all very finely balanced. And I suspect it's no change here in anything for the next 3 or 6 months, and that growth will be kind of okay, but certainly won't be stellar or anything very exciting. I think we're in a not so much a flat period as a calm period, I would say, actually.
Speaking of the Bank of England, one of its ex-Monetary Policy Committee members, Sir Charlie Bean, has been saying that growth will actually fade away this year. It is difficult to see how anybody can really predict anything apart from what you've just said, because the natural consequence of not knowing what to do is, as we say in Yorkshire, when in doubt, do nout.
Yeah, sit on your hands. And I think that is the fear for the UK economy, because as we know, we have an economy that's very driven by basically people going to the shops, spending money and borrowing money to do so. And if they do sit on their hands and that turns into a bit of a slowdown, then that would be serious. But I think at this stage, unless there are any sort of shocks or surprises, we should be all right, but nothing very exciting.
Very briefly, Gerald, what you do as a matter of course, this is how you earn your living, is to talk people through and about risk. You're holding a lot of people's hands, I would imagine, right now, metaphorically, aren't you?
Well, the old phrase that people and markets don't like uncertainty. There's a huge amount of uncertainty around, and it's not just in the normal sources. Obviously, we've got Mr. Trump and him firing at the hip all the time. So, yeah, there's plenty to worry about. So I suppose from my point of view, that's plenty of business.
Gerald Ashley, thank you very much indeed. 47 to 8 after closing yesterday.